Japan's central bank getting lots of attention as dueling politicians call for more activism to revive the nation's ailing economy ahead of December elections. Joining me, Richard Jerram, chief economist with the Bank of Singapore, who sees Japan edging towards a weaker yen as we head towards 2013. Richard, thanks for being with me. First of all, what's going on at the BOJ right now? We have this tug of war between a more activist stance toward monetary policy and caution. Who's likely to win out?
Well, I think in the short run, caution's going to win out because there's no real prospect of a change in the personnel for another 6 months. And so you do have a fringe in the BOJ wanting to be a little bit more activist. But the mainstream, I think, is still grudgingly expanding monetary policy with no real expectation it's going to make a big difference. But things should get a lot more interesting in 6 months' time.
Okay, 6 months' time. Are we at an inflection point then? Are we going to see real change, more activism at the BOJ?
Yes, I think we are very close to an inflection point. I think that the probable next Prime Minister has basically lost patience with 20 years of overly hawkish BOJ policy, a tolerance of deflation that has really hurt the economy, and he's showing fairly clear signs that he's going to put some people in charge of the BOJ who have a much more constructive and a much more interventionist approach. So I think that the things will change quite a lot from March, April next year, and I think the forex market is beginning to anticipate that change.
What do you think will change? And as you say, the anticipation in the forex market, how strong is this going to affect the yen?
Well, I think the basic thing that will change will be the policy, and I think the message behind the policy, which is also important because over the past few years, the BOJ has been taking some measures, but they've been pretty much communicating to the markets that we don't really think this is going to work. And of course, in that case, you wouldn't expect to get a big market reaction. I think what will change is they'll be much more aggressive in terms of the nature of the policies, and I think the message and communication policy will be much more aggressive as well, much more like the Fed has been doing, or the Bank of England has been doing in recent years. Of course, what that really means is it spells trouble for the yen, and I think you would expect to see the yen continue to weaken if the BOJ does step up and make policy, maybe not as loose as you have in the States, but at least a lot looser than we've seen over the past few years.
Do you have a level that you're seeing the yen at in 6 months' time?
Yeah, we think it's be falling towards 90, probably in 6 months' time, sort of 87, 88, that sort of level. So we think it's going to keep on going down. You maybe need to see a little bit more evidence than we have at the moment that they really are serious, because, of course, there have been many disappointments in the past. But I think that if you do have constructive appointments, then we'd expect to see the yen fall fairly steadily with that.
A final question, Richard. Obviously, we've got elections coming up in Japan, and this brings into the question how politics is starting to influence the BOJ. Are we going to see its independence actually chipped away in the end as a central bank?
Well, of course, the government chooses the personnel for the Bank of Japan. So from that point of view, that influence is not going to change. I think it's questionable whether they will actually change the BOJ law, maybe put in an explicit target for inflation of maybe 2 or 3%. And to me, it's remarkable that you've had 14 years now of central bank independence. You've had persistent deflation and realistically very little attempt to prevent deflation. You've had 2 premature increases in interest rates over the past 10 years, and still they haven't got around to changing the amount of BOJ independence. And it seems to me that the independence has served the country very badly in the last 14 years because of the permanent, persistent deflation. I think it would be quite a constructive measure to rein in the independence in one way or another.
Well, 2013, certainly an interesting year to watch Japan and monetary policy. Richard Jerram, thanks very much for being with me.